expenditures of our contracts. So one of the things that we engaged our ERP supplier, SAP, was to how to automate our procurement functions. And we're looking at the entire suite of the procurement functions to be digitally transformed in Santa Clara County, handling all the contracts, which is close to $3 billion of county funds. Um, we were manually conducting all our business that way. And SAP's recommendation was when you do the contracts module electronically, there's a necessity for electronic signatures, and they offered an opportunity to contract with two companies that they partner with. That's how we started back in 2014. And concurrently, the CIO was planning their own transformation, and that started off in 2009, but it did not get any adoption because people did not want to change, especially like the clerk of the board of supervisors. They were very comfortable with the wet signature process. So unlike other organizations where the IT department drives the business transformation, actually here, because of our automation of the procurement processes, digital transformation took off, and we're very proud to say that now it's a county-wide initiative. And in order to actually implement the DocuSign electronic signature process, we had to develop and adopt a e-signature policy. And as we were fortunate to have our county council work side by side with us, and we got involved with our IT security teams to develop an e-signature policy. We benchmarked heavily throughout the United States. We knew Alameda County was doing it, North Carolina was doing it. We also contacted organizations like Commonwealth of Virginia and State of Georgia, who are the front runners in the e-procurement arena, and we got copies of their policies, as well as our county council did heavy benchmark on what happens with State of California's regulations and how we could adopt those, rather than always say none of the vendors are ready to adopt to all the the government regulations for e-signature policies. So that was our very first win, because by the time we implemented Ariba, we had our e-signature policy ready, and we had a proactive county council who actually advocated along with us. So that's a huge, for all the participants out there, just want you to know that very rarely does county council participate so positively. So that's something we were very fortunate about. Then the Board of Supervisors adopted the e-signature policy as a standard for contracts in November of 2016. And we still have manual processes as we are transforming our business operations. At least procurement department utilizes it. And we worked with all the nonprofits we have 300 some nonprofits, and they were asking for fax signatures. And we were offering them electronic signatures through DocuSign, even though the contracting process is manual outside of the procurement office. And they're very excited, and now they're all utilizing e-signatures. And the last directive that we got recently in May 2017, we contracted not only for contracts with Ariba, but our enterprise platform for e-signatures for the entire county to go towards a more paperless environment. We utilize 100 million sheets of paper a year, even though we're in Silicon Valley. And that was a huge sustainable effort for the county to reduce paper, and it's caught on like hot fire right now throughout the county. And I'm very pleased to say that even though we started off with contracting, our efforts are going countywide in other areas of workflow and records retention.
That's great. How would this have gone if you had not had some initial guidelines that were done by your council and some of that heavy lifting that occurred prior?
If we did not involve county council, we would have adopted e-signatures without a policy, and somebody would have stopped our electronic transformation of our business processes somewhere after we would have all finished implementation. So it was wise of us to have an attorney assigned to us for the e-procurement transformation, and we got them involved. So we would have moved forward, but somebody would have stopped it, and it would have been a major hiccup. So sometimes we all work in silos and we don't communicate. So we were very fortunate here that as part of our transformation, we brought legal in upfront.
Great. Well, that's good advice. I know that subsequent to this, there's been a lot of questions coming through from various state and local entities asking for examples of policies, just like you had gone and started looking at other states and what they were doing, and trying to maybe take a quick look at some of their ideas. I wanted to make a quick plug that there's now a website that we put up that is free access for anyone that wants them. It's just a collection of policies that we've been able to find, and it's at esignaturepolicies.com. Feel free to take a look and browse through there. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to give us an email address or anything like that. Just go and take a look. That came from people like Genty who are having these issues with trying to find someone to copy, basically.
It helped greatly to have other organizations ahead of us, so it was easy to convince our executives.
Great. Well, thanks, Genty. I want to come back to you, but I'd like to also talk quickly to your neighbor to the east, Howard Hill, over at the county of Alameda. Howard, what's your story about how the county of Alameda went about their process?
Well, our story is a little different. We kind of approached it differently. The desire to start Esignature actually came about through a board resolution adopted back in 2012. So it was sort of a top-down approach. The Board of Supervisors drew up a climate action plan, and in that document it included that they resolved that the departments would use things like Esignature to remove barriers to electronic records. So and they set a goal of reducing the county's paper consumption by 20% within 5 years. And as well as improving business processes and staff efficiency. So we kind of signed up with DocuSign and started developing use cases without a policy. And our county council was involved, but on a kind of review them one at a time basis. And it was sort of the intention to say, let's get some proof out there that it's working, some examples to show what it can do, and then start to build a policy after that. So our policy actually came 3 years after our first use case, so it took a while. We started using it internally and county council, after about the first year and a half, was pretty positive and accepting of the fact, okay, you can use it for anything that's strictly an internal document. But we didn't go outside the county. And then we went to the Board of Supervisors about a year and a half ago and suggested that they approve a pilot where we would use our electronic signature and workflow to for contracts just related to community organizations for social services agency, of which there's about 350 a year of those. And the board gave approval to that pilot. So we developed, an entire workflow application around that. And it proved very successful. These things which you used to send out 5 copies of a contract to a vendor, they would sign them and get them back to us eventually, turned into 60% of them were done within 1 day. So it was a nice, proof that e-signature really does completely change the way you do business. We went back to the board in April of this year, and based on that success, asked for the ability to now use signatures, e-signatures, for virtually all county documents, with the caveat built into it that, you know, if the amounts are high or there's any question at all, to still check with your individual county councils that work with each department. And so over the last 4 years now that we've had DocuSign, we have developed about 60 use cases. And I think one of the things that we learned along the way was every one of them is pretty much a much more complicated than simply replacing a wet signature with a electronic signature. Our users come to us and they want more. They want workflow. They want data to be captured. They want reports. They want to be able to bring that data back into a new form, and so they don't have to type it all in again. So we've worked with the departments to build out those situations. And some departments, though, have also taken it and gone on their own and done really amazing things with it without really needing the services of IT. So we've empowered departments to take it and run with it, and we've also said, we're here to help if you need our help. So county council, worked with us to develop the policy, but we really didn't put it together until we could basically have a pilot and plenty of use cases to go back to the Board of Supervisors and say, here's what it can do for us. We've got the proof now to show it, and then get the board to approve it.
So it sounds like the board was wanting to get some, proof that it was working, it was accomplishing its goals. Did you were you able to calculate any hard dollar ROI in coming up with those use cases? We
haven't done ROI on the use cases. We've done some metrics on the paper saved, which I don't have right in front of me. But we do know we've saved a ton of paper. In fact, the county has already met its 5-year goal in 4 years, and now they've set a new goal. So we could, and then just being able to simply say 60% of all the contracts were finished and signed within 1 day from the time they were sent out. That's enough to right there to explain the differences of what electronic signatures can do.
So the paper reduction metric was part of your one of your key
one of our key goals, right?
Very good, very good. And does it make sense to you, looking back, to have come up with a policy after the implementation? Would it have been more useful to have guidelines ahead of time?
I think it would be. I put that as what we would do differently. I do think we could bring in county council earlier. When we sort of the decision to go with electronic signatures was coming from the board. It was coming from the county administrator. It wasn't really an IT project, but because they basically gave the directive to IT to say, bring in e-signature and let's get it going. We then implemented it. We made the procurement and did the analysis, made a procurement, made a choice. But then county council came on board, and it was a slow process to bring them up. I think if we'd started with them earlier, some of their legal questions and concerns could have been at least dealt with. Sometimes these things seem like more a matter of time than anything really changing, but you have to get people kind of comfortable with it and the fact that it's here and it's being used, and it just seems like one of those things that just grows on its own, but that takes time.
Change management and the expectation that change is hard for some folks.
Yep,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, thanks, Howard, and I want to get back to you as well. But I wanted to bring Scott into the mix. Scott, you've got a different perspective. You're actually dealing with a non-UETA state that was trying to get light a fire under the departments within the state to be able to go ahead and go electronic. And so you took a top-down view.
Right. Yeah. One of the reasons we were